Welcome to What You Don't Know You Don't Know, the podcast that dives headfirst into the surprising, the overlooked, and the misunderstood. Hosted by a curious duo and one man, one woman, we explore the world's most fascinating ideas hiding in plain sight. From science and religion to politics, psychology, history, and everything in between, we shine a light on the knowledge that's publicly available but rarely discussed. Each episode is a deep but never dull conversation that challenges assumptions, sparks new perspectives, and reveals just how much more there is to know, especially about the things you didn't even know you were missing. Whether you're a skeptic, a seeker, or just someone who loves good conversation, this show will leave you thinking, questioning, and most importantly, knowing.
Okay, let's dive in. We're all swimming in information these days, right? Just so much stuff.
Totally. Information overload is real.
And AI tools, well, they promise to be our lifesaver,
Yeah.
Our shortcut through the flood. But honestly, sometimes they just feel like a very fast way to get a very shallow splash of water, when what you really need is to get down to the deep, useful stuff, especially when you're tackling something genuinely complex.
Absolutely. The initial hype was all about getting quick answers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But for real research, for real understanding, that surface level summary just doesn't cut it. The trick is figuring out how to make these powerful tools dig deeply and reliably for you.
And that's exactly the mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're trying to cut through the noise here, show you how to get more and better out of your AI interactions.
Right.
We're looking at a specific tool that promises some serious depth, and then, crucially, unpacking the fundamental skill that unlocks the power of any AI, prompt engineering.
And to do this, we've synthesized insights from, well, across several sources, everything from hands-on guides detailing practical prompting techniques to a systematic review of how this is all playing out in higher education.
Which really highlights its growing importance, right?
Yeah,
And how it's being studied.
exact.
Right. So consider us your guides to the most valuable nuggets from that stack of info. We're pulling out the key concepts and, maybe more importantly, the actionable strategies you can use right now.
The goal is to transform your AI outputs from those, flimsy summaries
Yeah, flimsy is a good word.
into genuinely deep, trustworthy insights. Think of this as your accelerated path to being better informed and truly equipped to handle information overload with AI as your ally.
Okay, so where do we start? That tool you mentioned.
Let's start there, with a tool that sounds like it's built specifically for that kind of serious depth. We learned about a feature called Deep Research, apparently available in a higher tier version of ChatGPT Pro.
Deep research.
Okay.
Sounds like it was built for serious information heavy lifting.
That seems to be the idea. Instead of just pulling from general web data, Deep Research can actively sift through a much broader range of sources. We're talking academic journals, preprint archives, specific databases, a whole array of websites.
So much more targeted than a standard search.
And the payoff isn't just a paragraph or two. The reports this tool can generate are described as lengthy, detailed, sometimes reaching 25, even 50 pages of synthesized information.
Wow, 50 pages.
Yeah.
That's substantial. That's aimed squarely at significant projects.
Exactly. Like a dissertation, maybe writing a major grant proposal, doing comprehensive market analysis, or preparing a big investigative report.
Yeah, for tasks demanding that scale of data compilation and synthesis, the time saved could be immense. Huge.
Now, that kind of power, it does come with a price tag. We saw mention that the monthly subscription could be around $200.
Oof. Okay, yeah. That's not spare change.
Definitely not.
But I can see the argument. If you're facing down a project that would take you dozens, maybe even hundreds of hours of manual research,
Right.
suddenly that $200 starts looking less like an expense and more like a serious investment in saved time.
Yeah.
And, getting it done faster.
Precisely. One approach suggested is maybe subscribing only for the periods you're tackling those major research beasts, then canceling afterwards.
Treat it like a project-specific resource.
Yeah, like a dedicated research assistant you bring on just for specific high-demand projects.
Okay, so deep research gives you the potential for volume and breadth. Huge potential. But even with a tool that can spit out 50 pages, how do you make sure those pages have the right information analyzed the right way?
And that's the perfect transition.
This is where prompt engineering comes in, right? It feels absolutely non-negotiable.
It really is. It's not just about having a powerful engine. It's about knowing how to steer it effectively. A weak or vague instruction, even to a really sophisticated model.
Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Kind of, yeah. It'll still yield a shallow, maybe unreliable output. But a well-crafted, structured prompt, however, that can guide the AI to perform truly deep analysis and produce trustworthy results.
It feels like AI isn't just a fancy search bar anymore. It's more like bringing on an incredibly knowledgeable but slightly literal research partner. You have to brief them properly.
That's a great analogy. And that briefing skill, prompt engineering, it's rapidly gaining recognition. Studies we looked at highlight it as a crucial competency for the future workforce.
And it's actually being taught now, formally.
Increasingly so, yeah. It's being formalized and taught in higher education programs.
It's becoming a core literacy for the AI age then. It's interesting because some people wonder if AI getting smarter means prompting becomes less important. But the evidence we reviewed suggests kind of the opposite, that it's an emergent critical skill set that's only becoming more valuable.
That was the consensus in the materials, yeah. It's becoming more crucial, not less.
Okay, so if it's that important, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Based on the practical guides we looked at, what are the key principles, the concrete tips for actually writing a better prompt?
Well, the core themes that kept coming up are clarity, specificity, providing the right context, and viewing the interaction as an iterative process, not a one-off.
Okay, let's break those down. Specificity first. Seems obvious, but...
It does, but it's often missed. You have to be crystal clear about the task itself, exactly what outcome you're looking for. Even practical things like the desired length, who the final audience is, what the ultimate goal is.
No vagueness.
Zero vagueness. Vague input leads to vague output. Every time.
So instead of just asking the AI to, I don't know, summarize quantum physics.
Right, that's too broad.
You'd say something like, okay, act as a high school teacher explaining quantum physics to 16-year-olds. Summarize the concept of quantum entanglement in under 500 words. And use simple analogies.
Precisely. That level of detail instantly scopes the task for the AI. And building on that, providing context is paramount.
Context.
And a highly effective way to do this, highlighted in multiple sources, including those academic studies, is by assigning the AI a role.
Ah, the classic act as prompt. I see those everywhere. Act as a marketing specialist, you are a travel agent. Adopt the persona of a tough but fair editor.
Yes, exactly. This role-playing or personification strategy, as some call it, was found to be particularly successful.
Why is that?
Because it immediately gives the AI a framework, a perspective, and sort of implicit knowledge to draw upon for its response. It tailors the AI's whole approach to your needs before it even starts generating text.
That's smart. It's like setting the AI's mindset for the task.
Okay.
What else? Giving an example.
Absolutely key, especially if you need output in a specific format or style. If you want an email, show it the structure of the kind of email you like. If you need a table, provide an example table structure.
Oh. Right.
This taps into something called template stickiness, basically. The AI tends to follow the pattern you provide it.
So if I need a very particular type of project proposal outline, I could give it a sample outline from a previous project and say, use this format to create an outline for Project X.
Exactly. You're showing, not just telling. And this leads into what might be the most important practical tip.
Which is?
Prompting is rarely one and done. You must iterate and refine.
Right. Treat it like a conversation. If the first draft isn't quite right, you don't just, throw up your hands.
No. You tell the AI specifically how to fix it. Make point number 3 more detailed, or could you rewrite this paragraph in a more encouraging tone? Maybe please add specific examples for each bullet point.
Okay, so it's a back and forth.
Yes. This iterative process requires you to actively engage with the AI's output, evaluate it, and provide targeted feedback through your subsequent prompts. And actually, using natural conversational language in that back and forth often helps.
Makes sense. Now, for really complex tasks, like analyzing data or solving a multi-step problem, another tip was asking the AI to think step by step.
That prompts the AI to sort of break down its internal process. It often leads to more logical reasoning and frequently more accurate outputs, especially when complexity increases. It forces a more structured approach.
Interesting. And while detail is good, the guides also warned against writing prompts that are too rambling or overly long initially.
Right. Add the essential details, but try to keep the core instruction concise at first. Too many convoluted requirements packed into a single prompt can actually confuse the AI.
So start simpler, then refine.
Exactly. You can always add more detail or constraints in those subsequent iterative prompts. Build it up.
Okay. We also saw this concept of shots mentioned in the research. Can you explain that briefly? Why does it matter?
Sure. Shots just refer to the number of examples you provide in your prompt to illustrate the desired output.
Like examples of what you want.
Exactly. So a 0-shot prompt has no examples, just the instruction, like write a poem. A 1-shot gives one example. Write a poem like this one, example poem.
And few shot.
Gives multiple examples, maybe 2 or 3.
And the benefit there. More examples are better.
Generally, yes. Providing more examples, more shots, helps the AI better understand the specific style, format, or pattern you're trying to achieve. It's like giving it a little mini training set just for your current task.
Okay.
The research indicates that more context usually leads to better results, though they did note a caveat.
Always a caveat.
Right. Occasionally, providing too many specific examples can unintentionally bias the AI in ways you didn't intend. So it's a bit of a balance you might need to discover through experimentation.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got the power tool deep research, potentially, and the foundational skill in prompt engineering with these practical tips. But for truly large projects, you probably can't just use one super prompt, right? Even a really well-engineered one.
Exactly right. For tackling massive research or creative projects, the insights really point towards building structured workflows, essentially creating a multi-step pipeline for your AI work.
Pipeline. Okay, so that sounds less like a single query and more like managing a project with the AI as your assistant throughout.
It really is. A suggested pipeline might involve using different models or different types of prompts for different stages. Like, you might start with a simpler, maybe cheaper model for a plan prompt.
What do they do?
Use it to brainstorm objectives, scope the research, create a basic blueprint.
Okay, like saying, act as a brainstorming consultant. Help me map out the key questions I need to answer for a project on topic X.
Precisely. Then you take that initial outline, that blueprint, and you feed it to a more capable model for a refined plan stage.
Getting more detailed.
Exactly. This model can flesh out the blueprint into a really detailed research plan, maybe identifying potential sources, methodologies, criteria.
And then you unleash the beast, like deep research.
Right. You feed that detailed, refined plan to a powerful tool like deep research, directing it to execute the heavy lifting, gather the references, perform analysis, synthesize that comprehensive report, all based on the specific instructions in your now detailed plan.
That staged approach makes so much sense. It seems more efficient, probably more cost-effective too, if you're using appropriate tools for each stage.
Mm-hmm.
And likely leads to a higher quality output because you're guiding the AI through these logical steps, not just throwing one huge task at it.
Definitely. Using different models or different types of prompts based on the complexity and the goal of each subtask seems key to maximizing both efficiency and effectiveness.
Now, the academic studies we looked at mentioned something fascinating. Researchers are actually formalizing these prompt engineering techniques into frameworks.
Yes, which really shows how seriously this is being taken as a structured discipline now. Studies have analyzed various frameworks developed specifically to help users systematically build better prompts. The aim is more predictable and useful outputs.
Are there common threads, like things that pop up in most of these frameworks?
There are, yeah. Recurring principles include, no surprise, the absolute necessity of being specific in your instructions.
Back to specificity.
Always. Also, the value of asking the AI to break down complex tasks into smaller, manageable steps.
The step-by-step thing again.
Yep. And incorporating prompts that ask the AI to check or even improve its own previous output. That self-correction idea.
Oh, those sound like the practical tips we just discussed, but kind of formalized, put into a structure?
They are, essentially.
Yeah.
The research also offers a more comprehensive picture drawn from these frameworks. Elements like clearly defining the AI's role,
The act.
providing comprehensive background and context, stating objectives and goals up front, setting clear parameters or limits on the output.
Like length or tone.
Right. Being precise with your language, specifying the exact format desired, maybe even providing a template again, and critically assessing the AI's response, which leads back to that crucial refine and repeat cycle.
Rinse and repeat. And they even have acronyms for these. I think you mentioned CRISPy.
Yes, mnemonics like CRISP, which stands for Capacity, Role, Insight, Statement, Personality, Experiment, are basically tools designed to help users remember to include all these key components when structuring a prompt, particularly for more complex tasks.
Like a checklist.
Pretty much. A structured checklist to help ensure you're giving the AI everything it needs to succeed.
It really underscores that part of effective prompting is also understanding the capabilities and maybe the limitations of the specific AI tool you're using at that moment.
Absolutely. Knowing what your AI is good at, what it struggles with, helps you ask the right questions in the most effective way.
Okay, maybe let's zoom out a bit now.
Yeah.
Let's look at how prompt engineering is actually being applied and what the broader implications are.
Okay.
You mentioned the academic review focused on higher education.
Right.
How is that relevant, though, to someone just trying to navigate information overload or do better at their job?
Well, higher education is actually a great case study because it involves dealing with vast amounts of complex information, critical analysis, generating various types of outputs.
Sounds familiar.
Exactly. Very similar challenges faced in many professional or just general learning contexts, so the applications there often mirror potential uses elsewhere. For example, prompting is being used quite a bit in university administration.
Administration? Like, you mean having the AI write memos or emails?
It can do that, sure, but it's more sophisticated. Assisting staff with informed decision-making, even when data is incomplete. Using AI to maybe identify students who might be at risk academically, helping design lessons, planning complex logistics for things like field trips, or even drafting assessment tasks.
Okay.
It shows how these skills are valuable beyond just generating essays or reports for yourself. It's about improving processes.
That's a great point, using AI to improve the processes behind the work, not just the final product itself. What about in creative fields?
That's another area where effective prompting is proving really powerful. AI can significantly enhance idea generation. It can act as a genuinely interactive co-collaborator in creative processes.
Collaborate.
Yeah, whether that's writing, design, visual art, music. Prompt engineering helps you move the AI from just being a passive tool that generates something for you.
Like make a picture.
Right, to being an active partner you brainstorm with.
So turning it from generate image of a cat to something like, okay, let's brainstorm 10 visual concepts for an album cover about melancholy space travel, and then refining those concepts with the AI.
Exactly that. It elevates the AI's role in the creative workflow. It's much more interactive.
And you mentioned critical thinking earlier, too. How does prompt engineering relate to developing that skill? Because that seems counterintuitive sometimes.
It does, but this is a really significant finding from the academic review. Prompt engineering itself is presented not just as a technical skill, like typing commands,
Right.
but as an exercise that requires and actively develops critical thinking. You have to think critically to formulate a good prompt in the first place, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you absolutely must think critically to evaluate the AI's output.
Because the AI can, well, it can make stuff up, hallucinate,
Right.
or introduce biases or inaccuracies.
Precisely. Evaluating the AI's response for factual accuracy, completeness, bias, nuance, that's a non-negotiable part of using AI effectively. And it's central to that iterative refinement process we talked about.
So you have to check its work.
Constantly. Many prompt frameworks explicitly include steps for this critical assessment. You're not just accepting the output, you're engaging with it, evaluating it against your own knowledge, and using that evaluation to guide the AI further.
So it's really not just about being good at typing instructions into a box. It's about being a critical thinker who knows how to direct a powerful but definitely imperfect tool.
That's it, exactly. Which reinforces a key takeaway that came through loud and clear in all the sources. AI is an incredible tool for handling the heavy lifting of information processing, synthesis.
The grunt work.
The grunt work, yeah. But it absolutely does not replace your own expertise, your critical thinking, or your judgment.
The AI crunches the data, maybe drafts the text, but you're the expert overseeing the process and verifying the results. You're still in charge.
Yes, human verification is paramount. You must always fact-check important information, data points, references generated by AI.
Because it can be confidently wrong.
Very confidently wrong. AI models can present incorrect information persuasively. They miss subtle nuances, and they often struggle with accessing or processing information behind paywalls, for instance. They don't know what they don't know.
So the sweet spot, the real shortcut here, is using AI to dramatically accelerate that grunt work, the finding, compiling, summarizing,
Right.
while you, with your expertise and your critical brain, guide the process, make the final judgments, and verify the core facts.
It allows you to focus your valuable cognitive energy on the higher level stuff, the analysis, the synthesis, the application of the information, the meaning making.
This all sounds incredibly promising, powerful even. But were there significant challenges or limitations identified in the research on prompt engineering? It can't all be smooth sailing.
No, definitely not. There are real challenges. One significant one highlighted is the inherent subjectivity involved in evaluating the quality of both the AI outputs and the prompts that produce them.
How do you measure good?
Exactly. We currently lack standardized metrics or a universally accepted prompt taxonomy to objectively measure what constitutes a good prompt or a good output, especially in many complex, nuanced scenarios.
So it can feel a bit like an art form sometimes, maybe, without a clear scorecard.
A bit, yes. What works well for one person or one specific task might not for another, and we don't have universal benchmarks yet to compare against. Another major challenge is just the sheer speed at which AI models are evolving.
The moving target problem. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow.
Precisely. Techniques or frameworks that work perfectly today might become less effective, maybe even obsolete, relatively quickly as the underlying models change and improve. This means you have to be committed to continuous learning and adaptation.
Constant learning curve. Okay, this has been a genuinely insightful deep dive. We've explored how tools built for scale, like that deep research idea, can handle massive information loads.
Potentially, yeah.
But more importantly, we've really seen how the essential skill of prompt engineering is the key. That's what unlocks deep, reliable insights from any AI tool, powerful or simple.
We've covered those practical strategies, being specific, providing context through roles, giving examples, the critical importance of iterating, that back and forth,
Right.
and looked at how these ideas are being formalized into frameworks and applied in areas from university administration to creative work, all while requiring and hopefully developing your critical thinking skills.
And the overarching message seems crystal clear. Getting the most out of AI isn't just about having access to the newest, shiniest tool. It's mastering the language you use to communicate with it.
It's guiding its powerful capabilities with your own intelligence and judgment.
Using structured approaches like those multi-step workflows for big projects makes sense too. And always remembering that your human expertise, your critical eye, your willingness to verify, that remains absolutely vital.
It has to be, to ensure the output is not just fast, but accurate and truly useful.
Which leaves us with something to ponder as you, the listener, apply these ideas. Given how rapidly AI is changing and this current lack of standardized ways to measure good prompting, is the real lasting skill we need to cultivate not writing the perfect prompt on the first try, but rather the ability to critically evaluate any AI output, understand its potential flaws and limitations, and then skillfully adapt your approach iteratively. Adjust on the fly.
Is the enduring competency less about crafting that initial perfect input and maybe more about becoming a sophisticated critical conductor of the ongoing conversation with the AI?
Something to think about as you embark on your next deep dive with your AI assistant.
And that's a wrap on this episode of What You Don't Know, You Don't Know. If your brain feels a little fuller or like it just stumbled onto something way more interesting than expected, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss next week's deep dive into, well, something you didn't even know you didn't know.